Scenes Within a Forest by Victor William. As far back as I could remember, I've always loved nature. I've always considered myself fortunate for having grown up in rural America as opposed to the chaos of the city, full of filth, overpopulation, and misery. The brisk morning dew burns off in the midday sun, and the air is so crisp that it's intoxicating to my senses. I know this forest like the back of my hand. The only positive memory I have of my father was in these woods, the fishing lakes, and the camping. I can barely recall a memory of my father outside of this place. I guess that was for the best because he was a Rio bastard. He and my mom were split long before I could even put words together. He still managed to blacken her eyes on occasion, as if by magic. But during trips in this forest, he was different, at peace, much like me. I spy some ladies down by the lake. The trees and brush are thick, but they are there. I can hear their chatter and see their figures in the breaks of foliage as I walk along my path. My pack is getting heavy. I think I will make camp soon and see if I can introduce myself to these women. The sun is setting fast. I pitch my tent and wander toward the lake, but the women are not around. Maybe their camp is close, but I also no longer hear any voices. They will be back. The night is coming, and I must get this fire started. There are many rocks around this area which I gather in a circle and fill with branches. The fire is soon raging, and I settle beside the flickering light. I close my eyes. Something stirs rather close and my eyes open. They adjust and I see her standing there. She is white as a sheet, her clothes in tatters as if torn by the wild animals. Her body is crooked and her skin is hanging. Where her once buxom breast hung, now just rotted flesh. The stench was even worse than the sight. I was too frightened to vomit, so I staggered to my feet and took off running. I can hear her speak, but am not able to make out what was said. I run. I find myself back at the lake where I heard the women from earlier. They are standing there, several, all of them staring at me. Everything is a deafening silence. Their appearance was worse than what is chasing me. A couple of the girls are even skeletal. They call out my name, but I just keep running. Maybe I can find safety. The woods seem endless in this darkness, and I'm not even sure where I am. I ran for what seemed a long time, and I no longer heard anything behind me. I paused to catch my breath, and I heard the breaking and creaking of branches ahead. Must be animals. I can see movement. It can't be another woman, several coming out of the woods and walking toward me. I must get out of here. If I can just get back to the car. It should be close. I've been running endlessly. I can see it in the clearing. I get in, fumble for the key, but manage to get it into the ignition. It is not turning over. I keep trying, but it will not start. I hear breathing. I turn on the headlights, and there they are. The dead women surrounded my car. They are just standing there staring at me with dead eyes as I keep trying the key. It does not start. Remember? I heard one woman hoarsely whisper. I don't know what is happening. This must be a nightmare. I shut my eyes tight and replay my day in my troubled mind. I saw women at the lake. I made camp and a fire. I closed my eyes. I must be sleeping. I open them and the dead still surround me. I try hard to wake myself up, but I'm still in this hell. Hell? I heard another woman whisper. I felt the breath of the word on my ear. I turn and see she is sitting next to me in my car. The sun was creeping up behind her, and the morning rays playing on her matted hair, full of dirt. She was not as decomposed as the rest. Remember? She asked. I studied her for a moment, almost sure I'd seen her before. I found her incredibly attractive even though she was deceased. I thought just how beautiful she must have once been. There was a calm that came over me, glad I was no longer running. Remember, she said with more authority. My memories trickle back. This is my forest, my sanctuary. This is my everything. I grabbed her from the parking lot of a supermarket. I took her here. I took a large rock and pounded her head in. I ravaged her lifeless body for hours. I came back and kept coming back. When I was done, I took her, the woman that is in my headlights. I took all of them. I turned to the woman beside me. I couldn't help myself. I offered no apology, and she said nothing. I have to go now. Go? She asked with a slight smile. The police came down on me, knocking me to the ground. The trial of the Alpine butcher was just as swift, and I am found guilty on all counts. I do try to help the families of my victims find their precious little girls, but the courts show no compassion or mercy. My sentence is upheld, and I sit on death row. My stays of execution have all been exhausted, and my day comes. Remember? She whispers yet again, and I do. I was killed. I glare at her, my last victim, and feel the fear in my very eyes. She had a look of indifference, seated there. She is so sexy. I touched her hair and ran my hand down the side of her cheek. She grabbed my hand, and this overwhelming dread washed over me. I was no longer in control. Is this hell? I asked. My body was turned over to my mother, who was too heavily medicated to make any proper arrangements, so my father accompanied me to the county crematory, where I was reduced to ashes. My mind swims in these afterlife memories. I can see my dad. He looks sad as he hikes through these very woods. He must be back for old times' sake. The tears form and slowly trickle down his cheeks before he wipes them away. He can't get them all. I wonder if he cries for me. Maybe these tears are for him, how he treated my mother and me. It's a shame I can't read minds too. He comes to a stop. He is within thought for a moment, and takes something out of his pack. I can see the ashes carried on a soft breeze, my ashes, very poetic. My last victim still sitting next to me points out beyond my headlights, and I look. I see one of my other victims. The sun, now bright, shines upon my very ashes cupped in her dead hands. I see her smile a devious grin. My passenger whispers, "Hell." Trick or Treat in Hiawath, Queens, by Victor William. Elias and Heather could barely contain their excitement as they pressed the doorbell. It was finally Halloween and time to get candy. There was a chill in the air, but that did not bother them, nor did they have the desire to wear anything over their costumes. Heather was a fairy, complete with a wand and glitter she planned on throwing into the air on occasion, calling it pixie dust. Elias was a commando. He carried with him a serious Nerf gun and a backpack he planned to fill with sweet treats. But first, they must wait for their friend who seemed to be taking way too long. "Come on, Chuck," yelled Elias. His mother, who accompanied the two, glared at him. "Elias! Stop screaming. He will be down soon." "Mom," he replied with a hint of a whine, "all the good candy will be gone." "Stop it or we will go right home," she responded with authority. The door opened and Chuck walked out. "Hey guys," he said with the biggest smile. He has dressed like Dracula again. It was his favorite costume. He wore a black cape with a red lining. His face was made up pale and his teeth glowed in the dark. His mom even made sure to put fake blood on either side of his mouth to make it look as if he had just been fed. "Sweet costume," Heather said. "Yeah, you make it look better and better every year." "Thanks, guys." "Wow, look at all of you," Chuck's mom said. Without any further delay, the trio, accompanied by both moms, set out for the evening's fun. There were children everywhere, crisscrossing each other in pursuit of candy. It seemed that every house as far as the eye could see was participating. The trio could not contain their joy as their bags were beginning to bulk with treats. Soon, their bags were filled to the brim, and there was nothing more to do but try to eat as much as they could in between homes to make more room. A sound plan for sure, until their stomachs began to hurt. Such was the case when they came knocking upon this door. The woman who answered was good friends with both moms and their party. After handfuls of candy were handed out, they began a lengthy conversation. The kids took this opportunity to sit off to the side and try not to focus on their sour bellies. "Hey you guys," came a voice from down the street. It was Ashley. She lived at this house. She was a few years older than the trio, but was always very friendly with them. "Hi, sweetie," her mom called out. "Are you home already?" "Yeah, my bag is full. I can't believe how much they are handing out this year. I'm not complaining." The moms laughed and realized Elias, Heather, and Chuck were not looking happy. "Are you guys okay?" asked one of the moms. This was met with only groans and frowns. I think we ate too much candy, Chuck said. There is no such thing as too much candy, Ashley replied. Watch in 15 minutes you will be ready for more. Mom, I was thinking about heading down to George and Barbara's. Barbara and George were known throughout the entire neighborhood for putting on the very best haunted house. It was their favorite time of year, and it showed. The whole house was usually decked out, with graveyards in both the front and backyards. Fog machines were placed about the property and did their creepy work, while spooky music played. The inside of their home was no different. In years past, some of the neighbors volunteered to dress up and hide throughout the house for jump scares. Oh honey, I'm not sure if they were able to do very much. I heard George has been in the hospital. I passed by the house the other day and the front was decorated. Come on, Ma, it's tradition. Besides, I would like to see how they are doing, or if they need anything. That's very sweet of you, Chuck's mom said and turned to the trio. Why don't you guys keep Ashley company? Yeah, come on, the walk will make more room in your stomachs, Ashley said, smiling. The kids agreed and the group made their way to George and Barbara's. The front of the home was indeed decorated with the customary graveyard, but no fog machines nor spooky music, just an eerie silence. There were a few lights on throughout the house, but no other indication that anyone was home. There were also no other kids anywhere near the house, which was also different from previous years. Maybe they aren't home? Elias said. Well, we came, might as well see. The bell was pressed, but there was no answer. I wonder if this is part of their trick? Heather said. Ashley knocks as well, but again, no answer. She peered into the side window, but all was dark except for the light in a distant room. I don't know, something doesn't seem right. Let's go around back. Are you sure that's a good idea? Elias asked. If you guys want to stay put, that's fine. I just want to make sure they are okay. Ashley disappeared around the side of the house, and the kids were left waiting. 5 minutes passed, then 10 and 15, and Ashley did not return. Okay, what is happening? Do you think this is all to scare us? I don't know. Maybe she got in and is just chatting with them? Well, I didn't agree to stand outside like a jerk. Do you want to go around and see? Elias did not move. He instead rang the doorbell, but like before, there was no answer. They decided to walk around toward the back of the house. They noticed the back door was slightly ajar. The kids cautiously entered. The house was surprisingly dim, even though many of the lights were on. And they did not see many Halloween decorations at all. They began to think this was by design, and Ashley was hiding somewhere along with Barbara and George, ready to pounce upon them. The trio slowly entered the next room, but nothing. They called out, but nothing stirred. They were beginning to feel unsettled, even though they were sure that this was a trick. They continued through the remaining rooms on the first floor and find no one. Guys, this isn't funny, Chuck called up to the darkened staircase. There were no lights on that they could see up there. "Listen, we are gonna leave, no joke," Heather proclaimed. They look at each other and start toward the door when they hear a thud above. "Damn it, what do we do?" Heather asked. "I say we get out of here, period," Elias suggested. "What if someone is hurt and they can't hear us?" Chuck asked. "How could they not hear us? And why would Ashley be hurt?" "I'm telling you this is a gag, and I don't find it funny." "I don't find it funny," Elias screamed out. "I'm going up." "Something could be wrong, and if it is a trick we will give them a piece of our mind," Chuck said. He started up the dark steps and was reluctantly followed by Elias and Heather. They rounded the hall and saw a couple of the back rooms lit. They slowly made their way toward them, pausing to investigate each room they passed. They see nothing. They come upon the final room, lit only by a few flickering candles. They see what looks to be Barbara laying on the floor and Ashley sitting on the bed, George standing directly behind her. He appears to be biting her neck, and the trio can hear slurping noises. Ashley is wearing a look of absolute dread as her eyes met the kids. She reaches out and whimpers, her eyes rolling to the back of her head. "Ha ha, very funny you guys, you had us worried for a minute," Heather stuttered. The scene remained the same. Distant sirens were heard and the flashing lights began to play upon the darkened room as they approached. "George, you got us. We are scared now, come on. Let's cut it out," Heather uttered. But George continued his feast. The sirens switched off as the police parked directly below the window. The red and blue flashing lights were now filling the room, and Chuck was able to see George's face. "That's not George," he whispered. "Run!" Heather and Elias ran out of the room, and the stranger released Ashley. Her body slumped off the bed and came to rest across from Barbara. Chuck was frozen with fear. "I like your outfit, child," the stranger hissed. Heather and Elias ran out of the house toward the police, still confused as to whether or not what they saw was real. They asked Heather if she was the one who made the 911 call, to which she said it was not. The stranger standing before Chuck tilts his head and peers out of the window. The police were entering the house. The child is still motionless when in a flash, the lights in the room are switched on and the stranger is beside Chuck. He grabs the boy and pulls him close. Chuck sees the fresh blood on his mouth, his fiery red eyes, and his sharp canine teeth protruding. He shut his eyes tight, wishing it away. "Look at me," the beast demanded. The police were almost upon them when Chuck once again looked upon the vampire. "I will see you again, child," it hissed, and in a blink, it crashed through the window as the police entered. They ran toward the broken window and saw nothing but their bewildered colleagues down below. The attention was now upon the room where there were 2 dead and 1 traumatized little boy. One officer escorted him down the steps and to the front of the house. His mother was running amongst the crowd heading toward the scene. She embraced him tightly as she wept. One of the officers motioned toward an ambulance, to which mother brought her son. Chuck was being looked at by one of the paramedics when another officer came over. "We are getting some strange stories," he said, looking at the boy who was clearly in shock. "Are you the boy's mother?" "Yes," she said, wiping away tears. "Can you tell me his name?" "Charles. Charles Darrow."